Success of your technology venture is based on things like sales, marketing, admin, research and development. You would be partially correct in thinking that. Something that's often forgotten is the mental fitness of the leaders in those companies, the people who are making daily decisions that impact the company, the team. Today, in this episode, we ask the question, what's the connection between mental fitness of leaders and corporate performance? To get that answer, keep watching this episode of Techopia Live. Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Curran from the Ottawa Business Journal. Welcome to Techopia Live. This is a regular podcast from Ottawa Business Journal that features executives from next generation technology companies. We want to shine a spotlight on the up-and-comers, and we want to keep you updated on the established players, all with a goal of keeping the local tech sector informed and connected. Today is a bonus episode of Techopia Live, and these bonus episodes are specifically designed to highlight the great work that's done by our Techopia champions. These are the organizations that fund Techopia. So they fund the daily reporting and the podcasts and the email newsletters and the magazines, and all that great stuff. Today's bonus episodes, we're focusing on Number Crunch. Number Crunch is on a mission to empower entrepreneurs, especially when it comes to their corporate finances. They allow entrepreneurs to outsource things like AP, AR, payroll, HSD, bank recs, budget variation, cash flow, all that type of stuff. And beyond bookkeeping, Number Crunch does some really high value stuff. The virtual controllership, where they do data-driven insights into your company, and the virtual CFO stuff, which is the real strategic input. Number Crunch works with a remarkable number of technology startups in the city, and I urge you to check them out. You'll be hearing more about them today. Given Number Crunch's expertise, you might guess that this episode is going to deal with valuations or how to prepare for M&A. We've done that stuff before, by the way. But if you guess that, you're wrong. That's not what we're talking about at all. In fact, if you know Number Crunch, you might go, oh, that's really interesting that we picked this topic. But we're going to be looking at the connection between corporate performance and the mental state of the leader. Yes, you heard that correctly. To properly set up today's episode, let's introduce a return guest who's playing more of a role of a co-host today. She's the co-founder and managing partner of Number Crunch, and does a lot of great things in our city. Very active. She's done things like volunteer, of course, for Invest Ottawa and Canada North Business Association. Please welcome Susan Richards. Here she comes. There's Susan.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Michael. Always fun.
So we've done this a few times, and I do urge people to go back and look at some of the past episodes. And if you want the really kind of meat and potatoes stuff that Number Crunch does, go check out the past episodes. This one's different. So we were brainstorming this, Susan, and you had an idea that I think was based on an observation. You work very, very closely with local tech leaders and some people in other businesses as well, but we'll focus on tech leaders here. And you made this kind of observation. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, you know that when you see something that you can't unsee, and I was seeing it repeatedly, and it stemmed, like when I was considering topics, we do often talk about metrics and financial, capital efficiency. Just published an article in Techopia around that. And that's really important. But at the end of the day, decisions need to be made, and the mental state of the founder or the CEO, the leader or leadership team is so key and critical. And what I noticed was that on a good day, all kinds of great activities are happening and good decisions are being made and strategies being deployed. But on a bad day, the business performance really suffered. And the quantity of bad days that founders are suffering, and the ability, the resiliency to bounce back, was impacting cognitive ability, which was impacting relationships. And those relationships are holistic. Like, we're talking, if there's issues going on at home, they affect the workplace. issues with the team, issues with investors. And so a whole host of things. And I was noticing and unable to not notice the mental agility and strength of founders. And so I was really appreciative when you were open to this idea of going outside the box here, because I think this is really important to we're actually staying on trend for financial guidance, but the path to it, the road that we're taking is a little bit different than what people might expect.
Mm-hmm. And you used this analogy that really drove home the point to me, Susan. And it's, how many CEOs or executives from technology companies are making it a regular occurrence to go to the gym, to do some cycling, some swimming, some running, all that type of stuff. So they're all in on that. They fully recognize that they need to have a level of physical fitness and physical health to do their jobs. And then you asked me how many of them are considering their mental fitness. And I was like, whoa, that's such a good point.
It's so true. Like, habit stacking has been on trend for, I would say, a decade. It's certainly the last 5 years. So the top founders in Ottawa that have performed really well have built a habitual habit of wellness. They eat well, they get up early in the morning, they're exercising, they're having balanced nutrition. They may be doing, they're probably doing sports of some kind. They may be doing yoga now and maybe even meditation. But that would be at the cusp of it. That even I had a practice of meditation, and I could get to 11 a.m., 12 a.m., and then the rest of the day happens. And I recognize through, these guests that we're going to have on the program today, that there are very simple habitual things that you can do to keep that cognitive function going throughout the day that give energy, clarity. They keep everything stable. And so that's what I'm very eager to bring forward, because I see it could really help.
I think it's very enlightened, and we're seeing evidence by this. By the way, in the city of this, I was thinking there's an event coming up next week at Invest Ottawa, where some local tech leaders will be sharing kind of some information on their own personal mental health. So there is this sense that we need to come to this point, and it needs to go, beyond mindfulness. Maybe I'll put it that way.
Excellent. And I love the timing of this because last month was actually Mental Health Awareness Month. But like all things, like January, everybody goes to the gym. Well, how many are going to the gym on February? So I feel like this is coming in at a time where, okay, we became aware last month, or we refreshed our mindfulness around mental health. But what do we do now? How do we implement into our lives? And these programs that we're like the leaders we're talking to today have programs that you can easily incorporate into a busy executive business owner life. A lot of things, it's hot or cold for business owners because they have to make so many decisions during the day. They have 80-hour weeks, but these are little micro things we can do that focus on awareness, inflection, and habitual behaviors. So I think it's going to be super helpful, and I'm very curious to see how people feel about it, and if it drives a conversation in the community.
That's a great point. Great point. We'll have to try to leverage today's podcast to get some feedback. So listen, we've set up the guests. Let's get down to as we say, the meat and potatoes of the show. Today's show is divided into two separate interviews, both local people, both with considerable expertise, both with interesting and unique approaches to dealing with this issue of mental fitness. So let's welcome our first guest right now. She is Julia Borgen of Positive Intelligence. Here's Julia. Hey, Julia.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome. We're so happy for you to be here. And I guess we'll start off with a very basic question, Julia, which is just tell us about Positive Intelligence and what this company is and what it does.
Of course. So Positive Intelligence is a mental fitness framework and a brain training program that's app-based, and very often it's coach facilitated as well. So, and to summarize it, what it's really the outcome of it is really unleashing human potential. And today's it means different things to different people. So today we're talking about corporate performance, financial potential, leadership potential, ultimately, right? But it also can apply in many other areas in life, like athletic performance or how good we are as a parent. So because ultimately we use one brain for everything we do in life, right? So when we work on our mental fitness, when we train our brain to respond to life challenges with positive rather than a negative mindset, it absolutely affects how we are as a leader, but it spreads further than that. So that's why it's kind of the best bang for your buck in terms of time, invested, but it's also in terms of like financial investment when leaders do so many different things for their companies, leadership performance, collaboration, different things. Like this gets to the root cause of why we sabotage ourselves and what gets in the way of our ultimate performance.
I just want to say that I think that's the key thing about positive intelligence. Although the words and framework are positively worded, what we're doing in the positive intelligence starting point really is a survey that helps you identify the saboteurs, because that's what happens to us. We wake up, even if you've trained yourself to have a good positive routine in the morning, you're in a good state of mind until something happens. And then how do you react to that? And that's the key thing here, is identifying what those patterns are. And remarkably, when I took the assessment, I learned, my first reaction was, really? My best friend corroborated the story that in fact that was true. And within 48 hours, for sure, I believed it. And since then, it allows you to efficiently through an app-based program, actually, work that all out. Like, you're almost unaware that you're sorting through things because of the way that it's set up. And I think that framework will appeal really to tech founders, to the tech audience, in how we leverage efficient tools for everything. And you can do that now for your brain.
Yeah, and tell us about the assessment, Julia.
Yeah, so Susan is referring to the saboteur assessment that's available for free on our website. It takes less than 5 minutes to take, and it identifies 9 patterns, and we call them 9 saboteurs that get in the way of our performance, well-being, and relationships. And the thing is that there's actually 10. And the main kind of master saboteur we all have, it's not on that specific assessment, it's a judge. And you know the judge by a couple modalities it has. It's inner critic, as the critical voice inside our head that says we're not good enough no matter how much we do. It's a judge of others, and when we blame other people, or the judge of circumstances when we think it's economy, it's the traffic, it's whatever else. But back to the assessment. So the assessment gives you the measure of how high the voice of each saboteur is in your head. So it's from like 0 or like 1 to 10. And so when you get the assessment, it kind of gives you the idea of how much those mental patterns get in the way. And I've seen a lot of assessments from clients, and it's really like no other assessment is the same. And I would say those who are listening today, if you're in a leadership role, I can probably guarantee you will have controller as one of your top 3. Yeah. Hyperachiever, it's just common. Yeah, it's a given. Yeah, so it's a very it's a fun and easy way to kind of like get an instant self-awareness, what's happening, and also differentiates those voices from yourself. Because people can often say, oh, she's such a controller, or I'm a pleaser. It's not you are a pleaser. It's you have a pleaser saboteur, that tendency that when you're under stress and when you're in fear, because saboteurs only like active when we're in fear mode. So they motivate us by fear, they are activated by fear. And and they definitely, I want to tell a little bit here about, like explanation, kind of how it fits in and how our brain works, if that's okay. So, if the beauty of positive intelligence that it's such a radically simple framework. Our brain is highly complex, but we went to the root cause, simplified it for everybody to be able very easily use it. So when we're in fear, it's the mostly left side of the brain where those saboteurs live that gets activated. It gets active. And what happens to the other side, the mostly right side of the brain, where our prefrontal cortex is, empathy circuitry, it goes offline. So it's not accessible. So sometimes we think we're under stress, we don't make good decision, or we don't have enough willpower, but it's beyond our control at that point, because that part of the brain is completely offline. So the secret sauce of the program is actually teaching us to shift the brain activation from that saboteur mode, fear-based mode, to what we call in the program SAGE mode, of where we have access to our creativity and empathy and innovation and big picture thinking.
I've got this is a ridiculous thing to say, but I'm going to say it anyways. It's like these little I have this mental image of little minions running around me now, and they're saboteurs. They're trying to throw me off my game and pull me into bad habits and that type of stuff, Julia. Anyway, I was struck by the accuracy. I did take the survey, I think, on Friday or Saturday, and I was like, wow, yeah, that's exactly me. But what I found was interesting is why we're like that. So I guess, and of course, I'm just at the surface level of this still, Julia, but it's past childhood experiences, I guess, is being suggested to have implanted certain behavior or thought patterns in our head. Is that correct?
Yes, it's definitely part of it, because we didn't have full agency and control, at that time. So we had to survive, because they're kind of their role of saboteurs, while they're not serving us now, ultimately they were kind of created to keep us safe, to help us survive. And but right now, us being adults, it's not helpful anymore. So childhood experiences definitely play an effect. And also, saboteurs are kind of like another side of the coin from our greatest strengths. So let's say somebody is highly analytical, very rational person, really has a strong analytical, rational mind. Well, the liability would be that they would have a hyper-rational saboteur if they are in fear. So they basically hijack the kind of the SAGE strengths that you have. They don't have strengths, but it becomes like they take your strengths and take it too far. So it becomes like a liability. So, and I think that's also important to remember that while we want to intercept those saboteurs and not to listen to their voices, even if they tell us I'm here to help you, to achieve more, what you're doing as part of the program is actually reclaiming your strengths. So when I looked at the results that clients have, I actually can very quickly also know what their strengths are that are being hijacked.
Susan, we have time for one more question. And oh my goodness, Julia, I wish we could talk about this for like an hour or a whole day or a month or a week, whatever. But go ahead. We'll hit you with one more question, Julia.
Yeah, I would love to have you highlight a little bit of the movement you can expect to see. So when people do the assessment, it's a free assessment to even get a reading of where they are. And then they do the program in general. Does it help them improve their overall resiliency? And, over what time frame would the average person expect to see an impact?
Yeah, that's a great question. So while results definitely vary individually, and the research shows that within just 6 weeks of practice, that's when we see the change in the brain activity and that neural pathways get rewired. Some people see a shift almost instantly just because of within a week or two of the program, because there's so much awareness, just being aware of it. But just being aware is not enough. You really need to train. You can read a book about fitness and become fit. You need to practice. So I would say give it a good 6 weeks and you'll see huge results. And then physical fitness, it becomes a lifelong practice.
And Julie, if people want more information on positive intelligence, what should they do? Where should they go?
Okay, so go to positiveintelligence.com, and it has a lot of information and saboteur assessment and PQ score assessment, also free. And I would like anybody who takes assessment, if they want to debrief or discuss kind of how to bring it to their company, just connect with me on LinkedIn. It's probably the best way.
That's excellent. Well, thank you, Julia, for sharing all of this knowledge. I really do hope people watching or listening to the podcast go check that out. I was it was a very revealing process for me, and of course, still need to do the fitness aspect of it. So, thank you, Julia, for joining us today. We'll see you around town.
Thank you, Julia.
All right. And that was Julia from Positive Intelligence again. And we still have one more great speaker coming up, guest here. And let's recognize him now. He's been in Ottawa working in this type of capacity for about 20 years. He's the co-founder and coach at a locally headquartered company called Conscious Lead. We've used them for a few OBJ people in the past, so fairly familiar with his work. Please welcome Trevor Stevenson. Hey, Trevor.
Hey, Trevor.
Hey, Michael. Hi, Susan. So excited to be here.
Yeah. And Trevor, as I mentioned, we've used Conscious Lead for a couple of our past leaders with great results. But why don't you introduce the company to our listeners?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. And a long partnership. And let me just start with that it's a partnership with my wife and business partner, Dale Allen, of 40 Under 40 fame, of course.
Yes.
And as you said, 2 decades in this game. And so started as these youngsters who heard about this opportunity and just serendipitously got the license to an international organization, Leadership Management International, the youngest licensees in the world of a company in over 60 countries. And we grew and just had a great time in the development, our own development, and supporting even, tech companies right from the start. We worked with every industry imaginable. And there was something with that, though. We were working a lot with SMART goals and productivity and delegation. And there was actually an organization that had a lot of, it was in the federal government, and we were so widespread, and they did a survey of like, why do people keep going to Trevor and Dale? And we have all these internal programs that they can be going, and it was actually just a catalyst for us. They said, well, we're really like, it's Dale and Trevor in their coaching, and the programs were they're okay, they're great, but and we evolved away from that company when we started learning, and this was probably 15 years ago, getting deeper and deeper into neuro leadership, so brain-based leadership development, and we developed and designed Canada's first programs in that, and we got really deep into that neuroscience, which was exciting and it was new. And then it kind of became, but there's still like, what is stopping people from changing? So like the topic of this podcast, right? Like, what is the fitness side of it? How do people stay ingrained in the habits? And just knowing the science didn't seem to be enough for them. And some loved it, and some were like, well, what are you talking about, the amygdala hijack and all this? Just tell me how I need to change. And we evolved further then into this conscious leadership, which is now so meaningful to us and has created so much change in our own lives. So we work globally now. We run some programs locally, and it's just a joy to do what we do on the planet.
Excellent. Go ahead, Susan.
Well, I'm excited to have you here, Trevor, because I can see like there's a number of ways that leaders, founders, and their companies can work with you. So in your online programs, you run workshops, as well as working directly with an organization should they want to help elevate the conscious leadership of their team, right?
True. Yeah, and we have been down that path with a lot of leaders where we go into that CEO office and they say, yeah, you really need to work with my people. We need to fix things up around here, make it better, more collaboration. And we would go down that path at times, and it would usually be a failure for all of us. And we have, over those decades, developed the confidence to say, well, tell me more about that. And very cunningly end up just working with that CEO first. It really is a top-down thing. And not only that, like we work in places where there are pods, especially large organizations, but there has to be willingness and openness from someone who wants to be that change. And in these smaller organizations, it really then does mean that CEO, that founder putting up their hand and saying, I'm experiencing the value of this for myself. And they start to become the change, but they need more support. And that's when we will roll things more into a team endeavor.
That's such a good point, Trevor, because I think what we're talking about here are what people can do for themselves. So if we're experiencing issues in relationships, the intention here is not to fix everybody else. It's to come within, because it's usually an inside job. And certainly you can help with an inside job, right? Is that?
You're singing from our songbook. Absolutely, Sue. Like it has to, in any, Dire Straits sing that song. Every time I point the finger, there's three more pointing back at me. It really is that once we start to change, the beautiful thing is everything begins to change, because we shift our lens and our perspective about what it really is that's going on around us. And it's not that they are doing this to me, it's that this is how I'm reacting to that thing. And that thing, it doesn't matter if it's an ice storm or an employee that's not delivering in the way that we would like, or the economy or anything else, right? It's our own reaction to those things.
And what type of outcome can people expect, Trevor? So if someone's watching, let's say they're a technology sector executive, they're open to this type of mental fitness, mental agility, what would a program look like? How would you engage them, and what could they expect to see?
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Michael. So a lot of these founders, CEOs, tech leaders are experiencing a lot of stress, a lot of fear, doubt, worry, but just an overwhelm of all that's going on and all that they feel that they are responsible for. And so the first big thing that people experience is sort of an assessment or evaluation of what is going on around me, what is going on within me. And then when we start to understand what we can control, which is really just in here, then there's almost a great release, and a pressure relief valve is being pressed, So that's the first thing, even to get into, like Julie was saying, just to get some blood flow back to the prefrontal cortex, that we can be more strategic and inclusive in our thinking. And so right away, that's the first thing. And then they start to, from that space, define what it is in the areas of their life that they want to shift on, and they do goal setting. And so now we have clear intentions set, and we start to look at patterns. So what is getting in the way of the achievement of those? Susan mentioned about habit stacking, and just recognizing that there are shifts that we can make. And so as soon as people come in and they kind of develop a roadmap for themselves to move through one of our processes, then they are doing goal setting and having areas of focus before they receive the tools, or the toys, as we like to call them, that they can pick up and explore and apply in their own life. We also bring people together in groups, which scares the heck out of people right from the beginning. And as soon, it's incredible. One of the biggest pieces of feedback we get from people is, wow, I didn't think I could get that comfortable and that open and honest that quickly. And it's a beautiful thing, because as we do more of that in the world, each of us, that just opens all of us, and it creates relationships that are so important to just getting stuff done, right? And so they develop the relationships, they use the tools, and they start to recognize the patterns and the habits that aren't working for them. And we're just there to support them for at least a year. All of our programs have a year-long membership, and we have weekly coaching, and we're really there for a deep dive, because we're in this for real change with people, and that's who we work with,
Okay, we probably have time for one more question, Susan, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, I would just I love the nuance that you apply to this. So things like habits you talk more in terms of rituals. And so I was just wondering if you wanted to kind of highlight some of that essence. You meant toys is another one. So if you want to speak a little bit more to that, because I think people will get a flavor for that, and that may resonate with those that are interested in a program like that.
Sure, thank you. And I think something important to share about this is my and Dale's life. Like, for 20 years, this is the only thing we've done. This is our baby, and all of what we share with others is through our own experience, tried and tested. As side-by-side partners in life and business for 20 years. And trust me, if we weren't in this industry, I'm not sure that would have lasted.
No joke.
And parenting and economy breakdowns and home ownership and all of these things. And so it really is what we continue to learn is based on the practices that we choose to have. And we think of, like you had mentioned, rituals versus habits. And a ritual is something like, there's a beautiful statement I get from my yoga practice, which is about devotion. And my instructor says, if you want to know what you are devoted to, just look at what you do on the regular. And those habits really are our devotions. So we can create rituals for ourselves. And I think there's something, we have talked about this, Sue, that it becomes more meaningful. When I have a morning, and Susan, you're great at these. You have so many beautiful rituals that you've shared with me, and I'm grateful for it. That they become something that we look forward to, that become embodied in us through a desire versus through any sort of force or a pushing, And so we're doing things that light us up and lighten us up. And that is what, and we like to have fun in our programs. And that's such a big part of opening the brain. And so we do all of this in an effort to just have people experience the change for themselves. And then we want them to be that change and have a ripple effect in their businesses, in their families, in their communities.
I think I need a devotion beyond brushing my teeth in the morning. That's what I've learned so far. Anyway.
You sure do.
Yeah, I do. I'm not joking. I do. Listen, Trevor, we've come to the end of our time here, but tell us how people can connect with Conscious Lead.
ConsciousLead.life is, you'll find all the info, maybe a little bit too much there. So you can find us on LinkedIn and all those usual channels at Conscious Lead. And please just reach out. We love meeting people and connecting people and just hearing where you're at and where you'd love to be. And if there's a path that we can see that we can guide, then we're always here for you.
.life, I like it. And say hello to your wonderful wife, Dale, for us. So we only have a certain amount of real estate on the screen here. We can squeeze you into that little box. But thanks again. That's Trevor Stevenson from Conscious Lead, another great person working on the mental fitness of people in our community. So Susan, I think this really worked out. It was a little bit of a flyer. We said, let's not talk about M&A. Let's not talk about preparing, for a venture capital deal. Let's talk about the people that are leading these enterprises and what their mental limitations are and how they can overcome them. What are you thinking?
I'm feeling really enriched. I feel very joyful because I think this is I'm convinced, I fully believe that this is the type of thing that will really elevate the financial performance of companies. So I'm on trend with what our organization's all about, and we're trying to, expand that into ways that people can adopt into their lives. And I love, I think a lot of founders are insight junkies, and I'm thankful that what we're talking about here is insight's great. I mean, we all read a lot of books, a lot of Audible, but putting it into habits and then rituals. And rituals really for me is about inspiration over obligation. You don't want that list that you're going to feel bad if you don't get to it. No, what feels good? What are you inspired to do? And I love how Trevor talked about like where you spend your time, because we often think about where we spend our money is, if you want to take that inventory of where you spend your money, that's what you value as a business owner and your business. But where is your time? And as a business leader, as a CEO, look at that full picture, that 24 hours. And what are those rituals? And how happy are you on an ongoing, consistent basis? And if you want to be happier, as I did, I was already a pretty happy person, but I have recognized in myself that in the last year, I deployed a lot of this and I feel it. And I just want to share that. So thank you so much for
thank you for and I do think this is kind of in keeping with your brand. I mean, sometimes people might have thought of it, I hope they don't, but Number Crunch is like a bookkeeping firm. And I think it's so much more holistic. And now you're demonstrating once again that, an even bigger holistic view of not only the finances, but who's leading this, what is their mental capabilities, we said. So I think it's very much in keeping with your vision for the company. So congratulations with that.
Thank you.
Well, listen, and before we wrap up, I was just going to get an update. Anything we should know from Number Crunch? I know you're always working. There's a new brand, for example.
Yeah, so we have a new
website, but tell us more.
Yeah. So the key thing is we're shifting into functional areas. So I'm using the term FinOps a lot lately. Okay. So there's RevOps, and that's around invoicing, collections, and revenue reporting, so sales reporting. So we're expanding out into different functional areas, which I think will provide greater, consistent, high quality. So I already felt like we had a collective experience in here that made us a great choice, especially in the tech sector, because that kind of expertise companies need. They need to know they're working with a company that understands their industry. But we're leveling that up now with this functional shift. So you'll be hearing more about that, I think. I hope it's exciting to people. It's exciting to me.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. And I just want to reiterate, I'm always so impressed by the number of clients that you've worked with in Ottawa. I think there's tremendous value in that because you gain all these insights in what other companies are doing and best practices and trends and so on and so forth. So I
That's
think
it, that collective knowledge. And my business partner, Craig, is overseeing quite a bit. And our team, we have a team of more than 30 now.
Wow.
So we are ready and able to support the companies here and navigate through these interesting times. Lots of great opportunities ahead and lots of, interesting shifts as well in the landscape.
For sure. Well, thank you, Susan, for being a supporter of Techopia, and thank you for what you're doing from a larger perspective for a city to, create a stronger, more resilient ecosystem of technology companies. Thumbs up.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for having me. This has been great. Really
it has been great. Yeah. All right. That's Susan Richards, of course, the co-founder of Number Crunch. And before we wrap up here, let's take a look at some of the other great companies who support our Techopia project.
Techopia is brought to you by many great sponsors, such as EY, building a better working world. Number Crunch, offering virtual CFO services for SaaS companies. Pearlie Robertson Hill and McDougall, a leader in business and technology sector law. TD Bank, specialized programs for technology companies. The University of Ottawa Faculty of Engineering, creating the next generation of technical talent. Techopia is not only a podcast, we post new articles daily at obj.ca/Techopia. And if you're on YouTube, please subscribe and click the bell icon.
Hope you enjoyed this bonus episode of Techopia Live. Big thanks again to Susan Richards and Number Crunch for supporting the project. Listen, if you're looking to delve more into the local tech sector, you should check out a magazine we launched just a few weeks ago, Techopia, EYinsights.ca. That URL will get you to the digital editions full of great stuff on the history of tech in Ottawa, who's up and coming, the established players, all sorts of information and data in that magazine. Please check it out. I want to thank you for watching and or listening. This podcast is available on YouTube, and it gets on LinkedIn, Facebook, all the audio channels. So lots of ways to continue to consume this. Also, there's a great newsletter that comes out on Monday mornings. So you can go to obj.ca, click on subscribe to newsletters and find the Techopia one. That's all the time we have for today. Let's keep building Ottawa's technology utopia. That's Techopia. See you soon, everyone. Bye-bye.